today's budget hearing, and this is the first budget hearing for fiscal year 24-25. I want to thank everybody for being here today, and let me just start off by thanking the Department of Finance and Administration for their hard work in preparing this citywide and for their long hours that they've worked tirelessly to get this prepared. I also want to take Chairman Privilege and just say this to President Virgie Lindsay and to Dr. Sophia Amari. Our prayers are with you all. All right. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we have a rigorous several weeks of budget where we'll have presentations from various departments, boards, commissions, so that we can decide on the future of the city. Being that this is going into an election year, I think we all are aware that we can only budget to spend 75% of whatever revenues we have listed or that we will find out about in the short term. I'm going to ask those that are watching and Mr. Wright and Mr. Mellenbecker that according to this schedule, that if we can get those presentations in via email to the clerk's office the day before. So that means today, whoever's presenting on Wednesday and Thursday or tomorrow, first thing tomorrow, as soon as possible, we can get those presentations in so that we can have them. We do have the electronic version of the budget book. Council members and colleagues, did you all receive that? Okay. All right. When will the physical books be ready? Tomorrow. All right. So they will be delivered to the clerk of council on tomorrow. The books, but then the presentations, clerk of council, the day before is fine. Madam President, the day before is fine. No, the day before is fine as far as the presentations for departments. Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. And who's going to be contacting the boards and commissions? I know we have the schedule, but I'm talking about their presentations. Okay. All right. So they'll follow with the boards and commissions to make sure we have them the day before instead of the morning of or before the meeting. All right. With that being said, colleagues, any other special openings or comments? Madam President? Mr. Vice President? Yes. Madam President?
Mr. Chair, I do want to echo the sentiments of the chairman by saying thank you very much to all of you. You've worked many, many hours to prepare this information for us, and we are looking forward to rolling up our sleeves and going forth. So thank you, Mr. Chairman, for all the hours you've put into this as well. So we've got work ahead of us. Thank you.
We do. Mr. Vice President, do you have anything you want to say in opening?
Good morning. I don't have anything at the moment. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. We'll start. Mr. Mellenbecker. And for those that are watching, and Mr. Wright, if you could communicate with this to the departments, we want to try to make sure we have as much time as necessary for any amendments or discussion of amendments. And so as far as the presentations, what take a lot of time in these presentations are departments going over their goals and what they do. We already know what they do. Unless it's something additional that they're doing that has a financial explanation. But if they can keep it to what they need, why they need it, Just keep it to the numbers, but no need to get up here talking about we are the Department of Parks and Recs and we have so many parks. We know that. So, that's all right. All right. Mr. Miller-Becker, you ready? Do you need to sit over here so that you can see the screen? You don't have to stand, you can sit.
Yeah, and should try to switch it, which would be fine.
Don't do it and then throw everything off and we lose our quorum. All right.
All right. There you go.
You may proceed.
Well, good morning officially. Fidelis Malembecker, Chief Financial Officer. Appreciate this body for your presence this morning and for beginning this very important process. As Mr. Chairman, you had mentioned before to your colleagues that ideally you wanted them to send in a lot of their requests so we could work through them and not wait until the last minute to incorporate some of the desires in these budgets. That is a very critical process, especially knowing going into the election year and some stipulations that are applicable to this process. So that will be very important. The other thing is, I think, the upcoming fiscal year does face quite a few headwinds. One from a cost standpoint, but also from a revenue standpoint. One thing I would like to implore everyone to be considering, as we have so many desires to fulfill, those desires can only be fulfilled where there is sufficient revenue, right? Most times, in the service industry, in government, we focus a lot on expenditures, right? Mostly, that's what departments have is the expense budget. But we have to remember that is primarily driven by the revenue that comes in. So where we do not have sufficient revenue, we would not have enough funding to cover expenditures. So just wanted to remind everyone to bear that in mind. So what I would like to do is just go through an overview of some historical performances, which will help provide some context as we go into thinking about what FY25 will look like. So with the order of presentation, I'll review the revenues and the expenditures, our debt summary, revenue summary, tax assessments, and millage, which is all preliminary and subject to change, and then an overview of the expenditure budget for FY25 for the general fund. So with this first slide here, this is a comparison of the FY24 budget to actuals. The actuals for this report runs through the end of July. And then, of course, the other column that shows the percentage of the budget based on the 10 months of the fiscal year, the number there should be about 83%, right? And then the last column is a reflection of the FY23 through July of that fiscal year. So as we try to compare the revenues for these respective years. So as you can see, from the bottom number there, the budgeted revenues for general fund were at $123.5 million. Through July, we had $93.5 million, which is at 75.7%. And that means we were lagging, right? We were not at 83%. In comparison to last fiscal year, same time we were at $101.5 million. So, that's an indication of a lag, and could be several factors. Sometimes you could have a posting issue if certain revenues were not posted, by the close of July 31st, then obviously that would create a lag in comparison to the previous year.
Mr. Malambeca?
Yes.
Is there a way that you can give me what your makeup percentage would be? In other words, since this accounts up to July 31st, then
Right.
basically August, September, what that percentage, so that we can kind of see what we're expecting to close out at?
Right.
Is there a way to average that?
Yeah, so one thing, and the averages might be thrown off a little bit, because when you look at, for instance, general property taxes, right? If you remember during the quarterly budget meeting, when we came, there was a significant shortfall, mainly because the revenue had not been received. Your property taxes, the bigger chunk comes in like, February or so. And so at times when you try to annualize that, your numbers might actually be thrown off a little bit because you're not getting the same rate of revenue, let's say in August or September. So when you annualize, you just have to bear that in mind. But we can do that. We can do that and kind of normalize it, right? And also, I think as we share some slides, like for instance, the budget that you've received, Mr. Brandon, did that go through August? I think you printed it August 9th. So that one would likely have captured the activities that through August. So there's a slight variation, right?
Just to be clear, colleagues, in the presentation, this is through July.
Through July.
But
right.
in your actual budget book, it's through August.
August 9th. Yes.
Okay. All right, colleagues. All right, you can proceed.
All right. Okay. All right, and then I will, this other slide here, just dives into what were some of the top revenue performers, and then also where we had the biggest lags. Pro rata road tax actually was at $1.3 million, budgeted for $670,000, right? So from a percentage standpoint, as you recall, I mentioned it should be at 83%. So that's at 183. Personal taxes at $20.2 million. We budgeted for 19.2. The realty taxes were 31.8, budgeted for 36.6. From a percentage standpoint, that still, outperforms the 83% target. And then building permits at 91%, which was 624,000. In terms of where we were lagging, at the end of July, there was no applied fund balance recorded, and that's why you're seeing that. State fire protection, bus and truck privilege taxes, none of that has been booked. And then the water sewer franchise fees, this is a conversation that has to be elevated with Jackson Water. Since they now manage the water sewer operations, they're supposed to be remitting the franchise taxes, but that has not happened, and so we are in conversation with them as to what needs to happen. There was an understanding from Jackson Water that because somehow that may not have been captured in the stipulated order, that they might, that they do not need to make this payment. But, one is when the budget was made out, it has always been that. The enterprise fund does pay indirect costs and franchising fees to general fund. So, the fact that it was missed in the stipulated order, that still is applicable, and that's why we're having these conversations with Jackson Water. Then the other underperformance there was the sales tax, and really it's the way it's captured. We do have a tax intercept. So for some of the loans, the SRF loans, what the state does is they intercept our sales tax. And so that number appears to be low. There should be another line like in the budget that does reflect what that reimbursement is. And now this reimbursement will have to come from Jackson Water, right? So we do invoice Jackson Water for that particular intercept. Okay. And visually wanted to share this pie chart just to show the diversification of our revenue. As you can see, general property tax makes up about 53% of our general fund revenue. And then intergovernmental, state and local taxes make up about 30%, right, which includes the sales tax. And what I've looked at historically, there was a time where general property taxes made up about 45% of our revenue, but it looks like that pie has increased. You can make an argument whether that's a good thing or not. Ideally, you'd like to see some more diversification in revenue sources. Then this next slide is essentially a 3-year view of other funds outside of general fund through July of 2024, and just capture some of these funds for you to see, such as a technology fund. So the first column is FY21, second 22, third 23. And then FY24 year to date. And then the last column is FY24 budget. As you can see, the tech fund has actually had an increase in revenue. Year to date through July, we're at $4.1 million. When you compare to previous couple years, it was about $3.5, $3.6 million. So that's a good thing to see. And then, the other information you could peruse when you have some time. Okay. Then the next slide is the general fund expenditures by department. Again, 3-year view from 21 to current through July. And I'll go to the bottom, the total. For the 10 months, so year to date, we're at $88.7 million, which has been an increase over the previous 3 years. And the largest expense we have from a department standpoint there is Jackson Police Department. As you can see, the expenses have been increasing. Last fiscal year, through 10 months, there were $23.4 million. Year to date, for FY24, they are at $28.5 million. Okay. And then the next graph is an illustration of the expenses by department. So the colors there denote you have FY24 versus current year. And as you can see, once again, Jackson Police Department has the largest expense by department. The next, it says general government, and so one thing to bear in mind, there has been some confusion about general government. We have to remember this is where we pay for all our, property insurance, workers' compensation. This is where transfers are made, appropriations, so to Parks and Recreation, Human and Cultural Services. All right, this is where the appropriations are made. And that's why you generally have a high number there. Okay. Similarly to revenue, revenues identifying the other funds, did the same thing for expenses here, just to show where these funds are year to date through July. Again, Take Fund is at $2.8 million, which is less than the previous 3 years. Parks and Recreation, lower than the last couple years. And 1% infrastructure tax, there were more projects that were paid for during this fiscal year. That's why you see an increase there. And then, of course, the other funds there you can review at your pleasure. Then wanted to capture personal services. So again, of our general fund budget, personal services makes up the most significant expense that we have. So for FY24, the budget for personal services is at $87 million, right? And that excludes Parks and Recreation. When you do add Parks and Recreation, you're really looking at about $92 million, right, is the payroll. So salaries, wages, and benefits. Again, want to highlight, Jackson Police Department has had an increase because as we talk about public safety, this has been the investment made in public safety. If you look at FY23, the expenses for personal services were at $18.6 million. Year to date, it's at $23.9 million. So again, that is an illustration that an investment has been made in human capital with respect to public safety. Because it's the same thing with fire department. Fire department has also seen an increase in comparison to last 3 years. Okay. And this slide here captures the labor cost as a percentage of budget. As you can see, as I stated, labor cost is the highest expense that we have for most of the departments. So when you look at, for instance, the fire department, out of their budget, 93.4% of their budget is in labor cost. Jackson Police Department, about 82% of their budget is in labor cost. Conversely, when you look at general government, the percentage, the labor cost percentage is only 23.8%, right? Which tells you that the other expenses that are captured in general government go towards operating cost, right, outside of the labor cost. And this chart, again, is just an illustration visually to see the 3-year comparison of labor cost by department. This other slide here is a summary of some of the key expenditures from a departmental standpoint. So capturing public safety, when you look at fire and police, the budget there is about $64 million. Public Works, that number is a little distorted when you look at budget, just the way it pulls, and we'll have to update it and kind of normalize. But then because you have so many moving parts, where you have water, sewer, expenses, and then you have your debt service, and so that number can actually, comes out at higher rate, but to normalize it, we'll have to normalize that number to give you a more realistic figure for that. Human and Cultural Services, and so these are not only general fund expenses. This includes other funds outside of general fund that are associated to these departments. And I do have an illustration, in fact, on the next slide here, to show you some of the key funds that are managed by Public Works. Right, so you have your general fund, Public Works, the budget there is about $14.2 million, but yet they do manage other budgets like Fund 173, which is the infrastructure, 1% infrastructure tax, which is at $21.1 million. You have the Bond Fund 157, there the budget is 9.9. The capital improvement budget is 10.2. You have your public improvement bond, 3.2, sanitation fund at 14.8, modernization at 9.8, and then we do have the $40 million infrastructure bond. So all that encompasses the other funds that Public Works manages, just outside of the general fund. And this next one is for planning and development. Once again, the illustration of the other funds they manage. The general fund budget for planning and development is at $10.5 million, but they manage CDBG funds at $8.2 million, blight elimination 1.9, ESG at 236, HAPWA at 2.3, then transportation fund, which is at $16.4 million, right? All right, and then now we get into the debt summary. So currently, these are the active bonds that we're making payments on. The general obligation bonds, the outstanding par is at $94.4 million. The special sales tax, the outstanding par is at 21.3. Then we have the tax increment financings. We have five current TIFs at $7 million outstanding. And for Jackson Revenue Redevelopment Authority, we have $3.4 million in outstanding. So the grand total of outstanding par is at $125.9 million. Going back to general obligation bonds at 94.4, so we still have capacity. So the debt limit, which is subject to the 15%, will give us roughly a capacity of about $100 million if we sought to issue debt. We have about $100 million that we could issue. And this slide here is the debt service. So for FY25, the expected debt service for GO bonds will be at $10.5 million, which is about $270,000 less than FY24. So one thing of note here is the $7 million note that we've been carrying. That's due this year in November, and that would need to be refinanced. We are having conversations with Jackson Water, right? If you recall, this was the loan that was issued for water sewer, but it was issued as a general obligation bond. So we've been having conversations with Jackson Water about taking on this payment. They did ask for some research. They've received the documentation, and in theory have agreed, but we've not received anything in writing from them. As you are aware, they've had some cash flow challenges, and so we're not sure that they will be in a position to make the payment. So we do need to refinance this loan. Otherwise, the payment would be due in November, and that's something that we cannot carry. Then this next slide is the sales tax bond. This is essentially level debt service, and so the debt service is about the same each year at $4.1 million. The tax increment financing for FY23, FY25, we're looking at a debt service of about $907,000. Then for FY26, it increases to $1.06 million all the way through 2029, and then you see a decrease there. Okay. Then next one is the urban renewal bond. The debt service is approximately $578,000 for FY25. And then you see the amortization all the way to 2023 at final maturity. With this slide here, so the bottom portion is incomplete for FY22. We're trying to plug in the correct number, but we do have all the way through 24. And one thing we've looked at in terms of the assessed value, property values, the increase has been under 1%, with the exception of 2020, where we saw about a 3.7% increase. Again, this is a major driver to property tax revenue that comes in. And so without much growth there, you don't realize a significant increase in revenue to the city. Okay. This slide here, just a narration on some priorities, as I talked about, the $7 million bond, but also the issue we have with lack of timely audit completion, right? Again, the number of implications that we have without, having the audit, it becomes a challenge to carry out certain transactions, whether, you're trying to issue new debt, or you're trying to refund some of your bonds. What lenders look for is completed audit reports, and also they look at, and this is on the bond side, your ratings, from S&P and Moody's. And so the issue we've had is, not having current audit reports. It becomes difficult to be rated. And when you don't have, the appropriate ratings, your cost of financing increases. So at times, it is not, beneficial to issue debt because a lot of your expenses will go towards cost of financing. So this is why, timely audit completions are critical. Okay. Other debt that we carry through the Mississippi Development Authority, we have 2 loans there for lighting improvements. One was at 2017 and the other for 2021. And we show the maturity dates there, 26 and 28, and also what the annual payments are. But also captured there is what the outstanding amounts are through 2024. Leases, we have the energy efficiency projects, Thaler Maraho. In fact, that one just got paid off. Yet we have the 2013, that one matures in 2026. The technology and equipment loan, fire truck equipment, those have a maturity of 2026 and 2027. And the corresponding annual payment, expected annual payment for FY24. Then we also have the 2013 Section 108 loan. The outstanding amount is at $2.8 million. The annual payment is at $749,000, and that one matures in 2028. Preliminary tax millage, and this again is subject to change. We're yet to receive the final numbers from Ms. Horton from the county. We've not received the final numbers, right? So all this is preliminary. But where you do see, some changes here, the Disability and Relief Fund, there's an increase there, right? So the millage, has to shift from one area to the other. So the FY25 Disability and Relief Fund millage will be at 3.29. And this is, again, the actuary for the state does an assessment to determine what their shortfalls are and what increases are necessary to fund that account. And so they've represented to the city that the millage needs to be at 3.9 for the city of Jackson. Okay. And as you can see, your general fund millage does shift down to disability and relief. And the millage has essentially remained flat at 63.03. Again, this is a preliminary, the assessed value at $1.294 billion is the assessed value for the property in the city of Jackson. And these are, again, it's a compilation of, FY22 through FY25, what the expected revenue should be by these respective funds. Parks and Recreation, has been at 2%, which is their max. And so the only way you see an increase there is if you have property value increases, right, which has been, fairly moderate. This other slide here, captures the FY24 sanitation billing and collections. Again, this is managed through Jackson Water, and as you can see, through June, again, these are the reports they've provided to us. So their numbers run through June. They have billed $13.5 million, have collected $9.2 million, which is at 69% collection rate. Yet when you see paid to city, they've only paid us through December. And we are having some fairly intense discussions with Jackson Water. So they take a position that because of when the transfers happened, right, so stipulated order required certain transfers to happen from the city to Jackson Water. As we've known for a long time, water sewer collections have been very low, right? And the city has actually been bridging the gap. So general fund has been bridging the gap for that enterprise fund. And so when we were doing the transfers, we were looking at cash balances. We did not have any reserves to transfer to them, primarily because we were paying out, when you look at the SRF loans, we were paying those out and then, would get reimbursed. So we were advancing. Once again, when you're under those arrangements, you are advancing the payments. And these advancements, essentially, general fund was bridging it. And so Jackson Water has stated that because they believe now they have to cover, water customer refunds, that the city essentially owes Jackson Water over $5 million. And so they're trying to get that money out of the sanitation funds. And they've been informed that that's not the proper approach. And so we're having these discussions, and you'll likely get additional briefings.
Been informed by who?
Sorry?
They've been informed that that wasn't the most likely approach by whom?
Our legal department.
The legal department?
Yes.
And has there been any response?
So, and I don't know, Mr. Wright, if you're aware of any responses. And I don't know if we need to have some other dialogue, right?
To deal with that.
Yeah.
And this was the $5 million that was refunded by the city?
So
it wasn't actual money, was what?
Yeah, so when customers set up accounts, right, they're deposits. And so it becomes a liability, right, on your books. And as customers meet whatever requirements, they'll turn in information to get refunded, right, for those deposits. The city has been refunding those. And the
city has been refunding the deposits of customers. That they did when they initiated their water bill.
Right.
Okay.
At one point, because it was said, well, Jackson Water was collecting the revenue, then they need to be processing these. Their response is they were not responsible for that. So refunds were being made through the city. So there are certain records I'm trying to look through, right?
And I guess this goes into an, I don't know if anybody from legal is listening, but we might need somebody over here because when we look at this, about 65% of what you said thus far when it comes to our debts and some of the things that we need to make up, you said Jackson Water name a lot.
Yeah.
And so that becomes very concerning, even in us being prepared to make any type of decision. Just so my question is, and you don't have to answer it right away, but somebody needs to get with legal. Who authorized that $5 million refund and why?
So, no, the refund, the $5 million is a liability account, right? Now, not all of that has been refunded. Over time, over years, right, these are processed. And as you add on new customers, right, that liability increases. So
Right.
no, the 5 point something has not all been paid out. It's, it's what has been requested by customers. And there's certain reports that we're running.
Let the record reflect that we don't have a quorum right now, but no action will be taken. You may continue.
Yeah. So there's certain reports that the finance team has been working with Public Works to pull the reports on what the city, has been paying. The number Jackson Water is using is, well, they have an auditor that's doing the audit reports, right? And when they look at the balance sheet, they see a liability account, right? And once again, those are the numbers that are in those liability accounts. And I don't know from which year they were really looking at, right, to say it was a $5-point-something million, right? But again, when the refund requests were coming in, they were sent to them. They maintained that they were not responsible, right?
So they maintained they're not responsible for that, and they maintained that they're not responsible for the franchise fee.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. And also indirect cost.
Hold on.
Right. You have indirect costs as well.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, there are certain reimbursements that they're making. Remember payroll expenses, those employees that are carried by the city, right? The city is paying those employees, and then Jackson Water reimburses the city. The other thing, and I've not yet looked at these reports, Sharon, with the tax intercept. So the other thing to add to your list is tax intercept.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
And Central Supply.
Yeah.
Mr. President, can I ask a question?
Hold on, let me hear what, Ms. Timms, if you could say, get the mic so they can hear you.
Yeah, so the confirmation we're receiving is the only reimbursements we have received is for the employee salaries that are carried by the city on behalf of Jackson Water, and then some Central Supply. I don't think they've paid everything for Central Supply. Well, the employees at Central Supply. Right.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Foote.
Thank you. Could you, the tax intercept, could you tell me, explain that to me, what the tax intercept is about?
Yeah, so when you apply for the state revolving loan fund, right, the SRF for drinking water and clean water, which is sewer. So when you apply for those loans through the state, the requirement for municipalities to make payment is through a tax intercept. So when they calculate how much your debt service is, let's say it's $1 million. What they do is they actually collect that amount from your sales tax revenue. So if your revenue is $2 million for sales, from sales tax, they would collect $1 million, right, before it gets to you. That's a form of payment. So that's what you call the intercept.
So how much have we been intercepted for? I mean, is this for the year that's getting ready to end? Or are you talking about the year ahead? How much we expect to get intercepted? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. So we've had some of these loans for quite some time, Mr. Foote. We've been getting intercepted because we have, I know, a 2021 loan. We had a 2019, 2016. So all along, we have been intercepted. And the way we've done it, right, because that revenue goes to the general fund. So the way you replenish that money in general fund is by paying from the customer collections, right? So the revenue that comes in for water and sewer is what you use to pay general fund for that tax intercept.
Okay.
Yes, and so yeah, go ahead.
A follow-up question here. Back when you were talking about the Planning and Development Department,
Yes.
and you were mentioning, I think their total budget was $10.5 million, and you mentioned in there blight elimination $1.9 million. I did not realize there was money. I knew that they pay for these repairs we make when we go out and cut the grass and do some stuff. But that 1.9 million, is that all gone now for the year we're in right now?
So Mr. Foote, this goes back to, I think there have been several conversations in the council meetings about funding for blight elimination.
Right.
So I'll think of it as 3 buckets. So one, there is an amount that is budgeted in Planning and Development's general fund. Right, there's an amount that's budgeted for that. Then the blight elimination that I mentioned, that's part of the chart, that is grant funding, right? That's grant funding, and this is, if you recall, where we had blight elimination partners, and I don't recall all the agencies that were involved. I think Voice of Calvary was one of them.
Right.
Yeah, so that one is separate from the general fund. Right.
So is there any money of any of that blight elimination funds still remaining for the year we're in right now that ends in 45 days? The question has to do with, if there is, would it be available for the hotel, tearing down the Hotel O?
Yeah, so Councilman Foote, I'll look at the budget again. I know there was a certain amount that was encumbered because this was, I think the agreements we had with the blight elimination partners, I have to look to see how much of that has been encumbered. But as I recall in the council meetings that we were having, there was a small amount that was still available, right? That was showing us.
Let's wait till we get, and I know that so many things are heard, but I want to try to keep it on general questions based on the overview. That's getting more into the weeds of the Department of Planning, and no one from the Department of Planning is here to really speak directly to that. And I don't want you,
right,
giving your best stop when it might not be the right dot. So let's wait till they get here. So you have about 2 more pages go.
Yes.
And then, colleagues, we'll open up for questions, and we want to try to keep them in lieu of this overview and not try to get drilled down into the departments yet, but just looking at this overview. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for that. So this slide here just captures some of the headwinds that we are expecting in this upcoming budget year. And so looking at PERS, as you know, there was an increase of 0.5% in our PERS. And based on our payroll, right, I mentioned about $90 million. That would be roughly about $450,000 on the high end. So the number is like 3 for the upcoming fiscal year.
And also, it increases again in July to 18.4%. So I calculated both of those here.
Yes. So as you recall, in fact, Councilman Foote, you brought this up when the legislature was taking a vote on PERS, where they were trying to increase the employer contribution to 22.4, but then of course came back and made some amendments. And so now we're looking at, we've been paying 17.4 as the employer contribution, and now it has increased to 17.9. All right, so that's a headwind that we're expecting to face. The new Fair Labor Standards Act overtime exemption rules, which now has the minimum salary for exempt employees at about $44,000, and in January it increases again to I think 58,656. So again, that's additional cost pressures that we expect to be faced with. Of course, maintaining a competitive pay for retention and also for talent acquisition. Inflation and cost of capital is a headwind that we should be facing. Blight elimination funding, just like Councilman Foote mentioned, like Hotel O and others, as we see more aggressive successes through environmental court, right? I think we will be seeing some pressure with needed funding for those projects. Then Hinds County Detention Center, the county is looking at assessing fees for inmates held on behalf of jurisdictions. We do not know where this will end up, but that could be, additional costs that the city could be faced with. Yeah. And then Election Commission, and I think this has already been captured in the budget. Municipal clerk's budget has to increase by roughly $500,000, going into the election cycle. All right. And this last slide just captures some of the preliminary budget expenses by department. And for the actuals, this runs through August 9th. There are some minor changes that need to be made here. I think the budget that was sent to you, the proposed was about $126 million and change. This here will need to be adjusted because this is at about $127 million. And so this, again, is a summary in a nutshell, and happy to take some questions at this time.
All right. Just real quick, can you give me as accurate as you can, Mr. Malembeka? And I know that we're looking at some unexpected stuff that we can't measure yet. And then I also know that there is what seems to be a continued ongoing battle when it comes to the franchise fee and the indirect costs and the other things that we believe Jackson Water is responsible for, and I think they are too, since they're collecting all the revenue. My concern is looking at our fund balance, our applied and unapplied. All right, can we start with our applied fund balance? Where are we? Good afternoon, Mayor. No. Good morning.
Yeah. So with fund balance, of course, and this is connected to the audit, right? We have looked at some preliminary numbers, but we have to get the audit completed.
Well, let me say this. I know in order to have a certified number, it was certified. Yeah, that's what the auditor does.
Yeah.
But everything that he you give to him. So we're requesting that you give us, as close as you can, because it is important for us to understand, especially when it comes to our unapplied fund balance, where we are, especially when it comes to our ordinance, our bonding capacity, and those things that are important and pertinent, especially with the debt that we have on the books already. We need to know where we are, because it looks to me as if we're going to have to take some action to safeguard the future.
Yeah. So, and reason I talk about the audit, right? Although this is what we provide, what happens is the accounting treatment, right? Where you might have, what could be a shortfall. So, for instance, if you have a shortfall in sanitation, right, and you can calculate it in a different way, where the auditor might feel that, no, you need another $1 million, right, just based on the numbers. And so...
But historically, it ain't never been off that much, Mr. Mallenbecker.
In terms of?
$1 million?
Well...
We got good people that work in the Department of Finance Administration that have for a while. They provide those numbers, and it hadn't been that much of a variance. It might be a little bit here, and then he has done it and then changed it right back. I mean, but this is what I'm saying. This body may need to act to safeguard, because there are things that need to be requested. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
First of all, are we already out of compliance? Where are we according to 745? Okay, and if we're not, we need to know. We don't know nothing. So whatever it is that you know financially, we got to make the decisions. Let us know. That's all.
Yeah, sure. We'll, and we do have the numbers, and the reason there's always a hesitation is because when the auditor comes back and, once, based on the auditor's interpretation, right, of a particular fund.
Let me say this right before you say that. That's not the main reason for the hesitation. Let me say this. The council of old that asked about where unapplied fund balance was to spend the money on concerts and all that other kind of stuff, that ain't happening no more. So you ain't got to worry about that. This is about preserving the future of this city, okay?
Yeah.
Mayor, you had your hand up.
Yeah. I'll steer away from that at this moment in time. I just want to assure you that
But I want you to understand that that's our word. We ain't trying to go down that path.
Yeah, I got you. I think either way, we all realize we are going to have some difficult questions, issues of pay raises, and I know fund balance isn't the source of that, but issues of pay raises are going to be another challenge for us to deal with. I just want to assure you that as the administration, I don't have any more knowledge than you do, right? So I'm not sitting here. They hadn't told me this is the fund balance, Mayor, keep it quiet, right? They just want to make certain that they're not derelict in their duties and giving you an expectation that later, falters because of the interpretation. The question, I was actually going to ask a question. Do we have any more recent update as to when the auditor believes that the audit will be complete?
Yeah, so I think, so they're finalizing. There was one item that came from legal, which actually has an impact on fund balance in terms of the liability, right? They look at the claims, expected claims. That could have material adjustments.
What is the one item?
Well, so legal had to provide a response to the auditor in terms of the claims, right, that come through legal department and what they expected, payout. Is
that an executive session conversation? I'm just asking.
Well, maybe the actual details, but yeah, this general portion, no.
If I understand it correctly, so the auditor just wants a anticipation from legal what they believe the status of the cases are and whether they will likely have to pay, whether they anticipate having to hold a certain amount of money to pay potential claims. Is that what it's?
And legal has provided that, so they're going back and forth. The other issues, because we're talking about 22, right? I mean, we're in 24. So this is where I talk about how it's treated. Because, frankly speaking, 22 is gone, right? We're in FY24. And so, yes, that's what has been requested, and legal is going back and forth with them.
You said 22 is gone. We are in 24, and I get that.
Mm-hmm.
Does he have everything that he needs for 22? And I guess my concern is sometimes it seems as if because of developing stories or news stories or stuff that comes out, that there may be the request of something that might be in 23 that he's trying to use or maybe use in this 22 audit. Mm-hmm. Does he have everything he needs for 22?
So far, we've been informed that he has received, everything that he needs at this point to close out. I've not had the conversation this morning to see if there were any updates, because I didn't hear back on Friday on, where things were. So I don't know if you don't. But, okay, yeah.
So everything, the only thing we need is what's in legal?
I think that there's an appetite that maybe administration can get with you, outside of this, so we don't get into those issues on here, and they're fine with doing that.
President Lindsay, you hear what he's saying? Just repeat.
Yeah, I think that there's a desire that they can get with you, because it's a legal matter outside of here and explain. Yeah, they will share the same thing they just shared with me.
We need to have that conversation right after this.
Yes, as soon as possible. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, if we have to do 1, 2, 3, 4, if we have to do an executive session briefly.
That's
yeah, because, yeah. So, and I guess this depends on, when it comes to our unapplied fund balance, do we have an estimate, or do
yeah,
you can give a margin of error. We're not pinning you to that. We just want to know how healthy where we are and propose to that 7.5%. And I say that for various reasons. One, we just need to know. Number two, it is this body's authority, Mayor, to change that 7.5% down to 5.5 if we need to. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? So we won't be right there at it. And so,
yeah.
No, we talked about it. We identified that we may need to do it, but we never did do it. I think we should have done it.
I'm reading his
yeah.
position on that, but
Yeah.
Well, so, and we can, right, we can share, we had prepared, so because certain agencies have been needing the audit, what we've done is we've met to discuss our draft, right, what we have. And I think it's the same thing we can share with you based on what we've looked at, right? And this is an audited. We could share that.
So your unapplied fund balance is?
So this was 23, I believe, that I was looking at. Let me look at that and just confirm, because I don't know if there's been any movements. So perhaps maybe when we get into the other discussion, I'll look it up and I'll confirm. Yeah.
Okay.
you won't go home without an estimate.
Well,
It won't be long.
well, yeah. The colleagues, the major three things I see, because one of the things that we don't know and that's unsure, one, is the cost for Hinds County Detention Center and what that may be. I have always been under the understanding, even when I worked over there, that there was some type of tax abatement or something that was forgiven or something to that notion where there was agreement where we didn't have to pay the county per inmate. I think at the time when I was over there, it was around $42 and some cent. I've been told that that has gone up tremendously, and I've been told it's between 400 to 600 inmates on a monthly basis. And I know that that could be some shock and awe. And just hold, because I want you to give me your thought on all of this. That's one thing. So the unexpected. But the other thing is, which would probably be a more ongoing, is when we talk about the franchise fee that Jackson Water feels like they're not responsible for, when we talk about the indirect costs, and when we talk about all those things that we are paying when it comes to water and sewer that are coming out, and we are collecting no revenue whatsoever. And so then when you just talk about the general health of the city and things that we have to be prepared for and may have to do, I think we have to, colleagues, have the conversation on those things, including fund balance and the unapplied fund balance, to see what decision we might have to make before this fiscal year is up and going into the next fiscal year, to make sure that we're healthy on that end. And I think everybody's reading between the lines of what I'm saying. I'm about to be like him. I don't read lips good.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sanitation fee as well. But that has to do what should be owed to us, but they don't feel like it's owed to us, right?
It's still not set enough, because even what you saw, the new contract is showing us at $15–16 million. And that is not going to collect $15–16 million.
And their argument is that it's not in the stipulated order. And let me know, somebody, Sandra back there, tap me if we need to go in, if I'm going too close to.
I think that their argument is just that their math isn't our math, right? They're saying that we owe something else to them, and they're deducting what they believe we owe, which we disagree with, right? And therefore, they're saying that they don't owe the balance of the sanitation costs that we see.
All right, so
I think that we should have a conversation about potential actions we should take and not tip our hand on any action that we might feel that we need to take.
Okay.
Have that conversation. And
so,
this relationship needs to improve, because our enterprise and those things that are funded by our enterprise cannot survive if we continue to have these tiffs with Jackson Water. And there's some other long-term discussions in addition to how the budget works that we need to have.
All right, so in terms of Jackson Water, you know, I mean, when we look at the franchise fee, when we look at the indirect costs, the most threatening thing is sanitation. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
All right, you were about to say something.
The fee is just, the new contract price is not sufficient. The fee is not sufficient to cover that and the landfill. We've got a lot of rubbish down there that needs to be chipped and grind. We're going to get a heavy fine if we don't do it. And her budget, the $15–16 million budget you're about to see, does not even include any of that. And that's another $500,000. To open the new sale, she's got to cover the old sale. That's another $500,000. The fees are just not there. I mean, every year, the general fund, at the end of the year, I'm having to use $2 to $3 million just to get her out of the negative. I mean, solid waste out of the negative. We cannot continue to do that.
Go ahead, Mr. Millenbecker.
So I think, you know, two things here. One, the concern, like you've shared, with collecting our money from Jackson Water. The second issue here is the actual collection percentage of sanitation. As I show here, they're at 68.6%. At this rate, we would not have sufficient revenue to cover expenses for sanitation and solid waste.
And
In terms of the rate, you know, and the mayor had a press conference at one point where he was asked,
I remember.
do we need to increase the rates? And the response was, if we are unable to increase the collection percentage, then it would be necessary. But if you increase the collection rate, you would actually have sufficient revenue to cover, right? Because if they collected at even maybe 90%, I mean, that's over $18 million that they could bring in. But at this rate, they're not collecting enough.
Yeah, you know, the problem you run into the debt, and I'm just forecasting, if my colleagues don't mind, is when you talk about a collection rate of less than 70% of the residents or those who should be paying are paying in, and then you're talking about increasing the rate on just the 68% and not even having an attempt, and I don't know, it may be an attempt to get somewhere close to 85%, 90%, you know what I'm saying? And I see the goal as increase the collection rate, but if they're going to be doing the billing, and they are, correct? Then that should be one of their goals. And I don't know, Madam President, if we need to have a meeting to get some clarity on what their goals are as far as their collection rate, but I can almost tell you with some certainty it's going to be hard for there to be a vote to increase that sanitation fee when you're only looking at 68%, because that means that the 68% going to keep bearing the burden, whatever it is, and we're not even trying to, you know what I'm saying? And that goal of increasing that collection rate is not on us. It's on, yeah.
And there lies the rub, right? Like, even if they come before us and tell us, well, these are our goals, these are our aspirations, how much can we set our budget on their goals and aspirations, right? What the typical practice is that you set your budget off of past performance, right? That is the better indicator of what's going to happen beyond what their goals and beliefs are. You know, for some time, and I'm not trying to be disparaging, for some time, you know, they were echoing, well, we're going to start shutoffs, and, you know, we anticipate a bump from shutoffs. Well, you know, we tried to share with them, and this is why conversation is necessary, that we have a past experience where we did shutoffs, and the yield wasn't as much as we thought it would be, right? And when you get to shutting off, and you see all of these accounts, there are accounts that they're discovering, you know, with the city, there were several accounts that we don't even have, nor when they quote unquote shut it off, did it affect anything, right? You're going to find people that you're talking about cutting off that don't live in the city anymore, homes that are no longer there, you know, people who, you know, you'll have some people to come in, but if you're expecting the huge bump that you are, then you may want to, you know, recalculate for as conservative and as modest of a number as you can see. So that's why we have problems there. And yes, it is unfair to the few that are paying. It is unfair that their rates be increased. Unfortunately, that happens to be a frequent, you know, occurrence, not just here in Jackson, but in government. You know, it's often, you know, the few that pay for the many.
Yeah, and I get it. You know, one, and this has come up from this body. I see you, Councilman Foote. This has come out from this body before, and I think we need to explore it, considering do we try to separate our sanitation and do our own billing? And will that give us the opportunity to show that we're able to do a better job than what has been done?
The problem with that is, I think that could potentially yield a worse result, right? Because it being connected right now, if someone doesn't pay that bill, which is the sanitation part of the bill, it's still a part of their bill, and their water can be cut off. We don't have the capacity to shut off their sanitation collection. And so let's think of it in our own home, right? If I'm struggling and I know that if I don't pay my electric bill, my power is going to go off. But if I don't pay my sanitation bill, it's still going to get collected, right? Then I'm going to make the decision, well, I'm going to pay this power bill, right? Because I know that my garbage is still going to get picked up, right?
No, I hear you, but I think we got to think outside the box on this. I think we got to, communicate and try to use some relationships. Eddie Fair's already collecting our taxes. City of Nashville, they collect their sanitation fee through their tag. And so we have to think outside of the box and find ways.
And I'm not opposed if we have a solid plan outside of the box, right?
Yeah.
Because we also got people that live in the city, drive in the city, and get their tags in Madison because our tags cost more here in Jackson, right? They're already avoiding our tag costs, right? So
No, I get it, but I think you at a rate be better off than where we are now. Based on, just what we see. I think there's just a conversation we got to have. You were about to say something. I was going to see if we had some information.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So,
I'm sorry, Councilman Foote.
Thank you,
Councilman Foote,
Mr. Chair. To help me understand this, I think it would help me. I know we've been doing this in terms of percentage of rate collection. But it would help me on the expense side. We've got expenses that we have to meet for our garbage collection, and I guess then there's landfill or the other side of there's the pickup, and then there's the disposal. What is our monthly cost for our garbage contract, and then I guess the landfill operation? Can you give me the dollar amount on that?
So I think garbage is $851 a month, $855 a month. And
Okay.
Yeah.
The disposal side?
Disposal, excuse me. Disposal does fluctuate. So we typically budget for about $2.2 million for disposal. And so the monthly amounts do fluctuate. But that would be roughly, close to 200,000.
Okay.
Yeah. No,
And
monthly.
then So they collect, what we've got to do is we need from Jackson Water enough money to cover our garbage collection. And so they get, their money comes in, it's supposed to, as they collect the money, it comes in terms of money for both water service and sewer service, and then also garbage. And they're getting, I don't know, let's assume it's $5 million. How much are they paying us? Are they paying us a monthly amount of the pro rata amount of their collection rate? What are they paying per month?
Councilman Foote, it looked like what we've gotten is October, November, December.
But they've collected, so
What they collect don't matter if we ain't, hold on. What they collect don't matter if we don't have it.
Right.
But it looks like they paid $1 million in October, $902,000 in November, $970,000 in December. That's what the city has gotten from Jackson Water.
Yeah, but I think going back,
to get it up above $1 million so we can cover our costs, correct? Is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. So what I was going to point out, the column that shows that collected amount, that's essentially the accounts receivable, right, on our end. In 9 months, they've only had 4 months where they collected more than $1 million. The rest have been under $1 million. So June, they only collected $881,000, right? And that's not enough, really. It would cover the private garbage collection contract for that 1 month. But again, that's before you get to other expenses, disposal, solid waste, the landfill, and employees.
Right. And disposal is based on tonnage, right?
Yes.
So what are our monthly expenses then for both the garbage contract and the other related, landfill and disposal contracts? What is our monthly nut that we have to cover?
Yeah, roughly about 1.2, roughly.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, this, last time I did the analysis, I've got to look at the updated numbers with this new contract, but I think it was about $1.3 million.
All right.
Because one thing I was going to mention, and because we had this conversation about alternative ways, and I think legal is going to research, because we did share some municipalities that attach the billing to car tags, and so I think legal is going to research, what the process is. I think Terry was going to look at that, so if you can take that back. Yeah.
Yeah, legal works for us. Sometimes we got to do it and make the decision, and then just tell them we need them to defend it. I just want to put that out there. There's another side, But because at the end of the day, we are not in a good place. Mm-hmm. Just gonna have to say it, and so we got to do something. Mm-hmm. Here's my question. Did you ever give me the unapplied fund balance?
Yeah, so, and this obviously is subject to transfers. General fund, and this would essentially be FY23, right?
Okay.
And the caveat is, this is before the transfers, right? The unassigned was 19.9, because I think 22 was about 17 point something unassigned, but then of course you do the 7.5, you back that out, and then the other transfers that have to be made covering sanitation shortfall, right, would come from there, and there are certain actions that were taken, so you deduct all that to come out to, what's left to be spent. So the way it's broken down in terms of unassigned, it's unassigned, but that's before you apply that percentage, right? So the number I just gave you was, I think 22, like 17 point something, and then at least roughly 19, it was 19 point something.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Colleagues, I think that when we look at our budget overall, and when we look at some of the goals that we may have, and I don't know if it's clear in this presentation if there's an ask for a millage increase or not. I'm seeing head shaking. No, there's not an ask for. Okay. I am under the impression that it might be a wise move to consider freezing all budget amendments or not allowing any budget amendments for the rest of this fiscal year. I hear you.
I have to have my closeout.
No, I got you as far as things pertinent to fix it, but I'm talking about a freaking budget amendment to buy 10 cars.
Oh, we've already cut that off.
I'm just, cause last time we saw it after this. I ain't talking about the budget amendments necessary for closeout.
Yeah.
I'm talking about, I didn't use these spots over here and I want to buy 12 cars. I'm talking about that foolishness. Oh, I'm sorry, I shouldn't have said it like that.
Yeah,
But go
they've
ahead.
been cut out.
Go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Those have been stopped. Leading into an election year, we can only have one in the last quarter, and it has to be done in August.
Okay.
So we've cut those off because we have to have that one for closeout.
Okay.
So there
well,
will be none of those coming before you.
Okay. All right. Well, good job. All right. So we're.
But I also just want to make a point. I know you asked the question. The budget proposal does not factor in a millage, but I think for us to be cautious as we come up, in my opening I talked about desires. Certain desires would require a millage increase to be fulfilled, right? So just wanted to mention that, but in terms of what is being proposed here, does not factor in millage increase.
Go ahead, Councilwoman Lindsay.
Yes, I just wanted to ask Mr. Mallenbecker, since we are in an election year, and you alluded to this at the beginning of this meeting, for the record, would you state what those special considerations are?
Yes, so, and I'll actually ask maybe Ms. Horton to share the particular details, where for the first 3 quarters, right, departments cannot spend more than 75% of the budget, right? And that's one thing that has been communicated with all departments in their meetings. Statute requires that they do not expend more than 75%. Then the other one is just what was shared in terms of a budget amendment where there can only be one amendment made in the month of August, and that's why it was stated departments have been shut out from that process.
Hold on. I think that's you, Councilman Foote. If you were mute, it's something interfering with your frequency.
Okay, I apologize. Can you hear me okay?
No, I can hear you. We're asking if you were mute. It's like something's interfering with your frequency.
Oh, sure. Okay. I'm sorry. It's a lawnmower outside my office, probably.
It's a lawnmower. Send them down Forest Hill Road. No, I'm just playing. All right. Thank you. Go ahead.
Yes, so that's those are the stipulations.
All right. Any other questions? Where are we with our ARPA spending?
So we have approximately $2 million left.
And we have to win?
So obligated by December of 2024, expended by 2026. And there's been a plan that is I'll yield to the mayor to share.
So, and obviously this is for your consideration, but time sensitivity should be incorporated in our thought process. After a conversation with the executive director of JRA, he made the suggestion that we might want to create a revolving loan fund. I think I may have mentioned that to you, Councilwoman Lindsay. And that revolving loan fund would allow for, certain projects that the city wants to do or developers to take out a loan that is better than what a bank's rates are. And it will allow us to regenerate and increase that fund for more projects in perpetuity over time. So I thought it was an excellent suggestion. Many people come before the city and desire some type of development project, and they're surprised that the city doesn't have more skin to put in the game, and I think this allows us to do that. But at the same time, increase the pot so that we can continue to see development across our city. And it would still be, in the grand scheme, a modest amount, but we have to start somewhere.
Okay, all right, sounds good. Colleagues,
The question we have, though, I think this is worth mentioning. The question we have is if we made that decision, whether it would suffice for the appropriation component by the December deadline, or does the money need to be pushed towards a specific project within that revolving loan fund? So I've asked Drew's team to figure that out, and we're anticipating an answer.
I can also share, so the other thing that we're looking into, along with legal, is if we were to claim revenue loss, right, then we would not be under those particular timelines. And so that's another alternative, but we'll get the final answers. Yeah.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, do you know of any other cities who've been able to create such a revolving loan fund? I mean, that's a very intriguing idea, and I like it a lot.
So Mr. Pike, he shared, I don't personally know of the cities, but he shared that many cities had, and he would present to me those cities that had done that. So that, you know, per his suggestion, he said that he wanted to offer that information. In fact, we can ask them when they come before you for their budget presentation if they could supply us with some information with respect to other cities. Okay.
All right. Are there any other questions? I'm trying to see if we're prepared to do that. Go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know if it requires an executive session, but they're going to inform you and, you know, come to you. Because I don't know if we quite have the specifics of a legal cause to do that, you know, but I think that they're prepared to inform you.
Okay.
All right. Colleagues, you have a minute after? Okay. Councilman Foote, Councilman Griselle, you have anything?
You're on mute now.
I can't hear.
Lots more things to consider, but nothing to bring up right now. Thank you.
All right. Our next public meeting is going to be Wednesday. That's correct? Start at 9 a.m. sharp. Tomorrow is, of course, we have a council meeting, and so we already do have amounts of information to view. And so if we could get those presentations from police and fire by, you said 5 p.m.? Before 5 p.m.? Before 5 p.m. You sure? Today?
I think tomorrow is the day. Tomorrow.
Before 5 p.m. tomorrow?
Yeah, that's fine. So I can email it to the council.
Okay, before 5 p.m. tomorrow. Okay. And then also, colleagues, we will have the actual printed books tomorrow while we're probably in council meeting sometime. While we're in council meeting, we'll probably get them. Okay. Is there anything else to come before this body or any other announcements? Again, I just want to say that President Virgie Lindsay and to Dr. Omari, our prayers are with you, and we're here for you. I get it. I understand. Anything you want to say? That's it?
No, I join in those sentiments completely. As I share with you, Councilwoman Lindsay, it doesn't matter how old you are. When you lose mom, you know, you feel it. I still feel like an orphan today. So our prayers are with you, and like Councilman Banks said, and Dr. Omar.
All right. Other than that, we'll talk about that. There's nothing else coming before this body. This meeting's adjourned.